Hey, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Writer's Bookshelf. So today we're going to do another Thesaurus series from Angela Ackerman and Becca. I can't say her name. I'm sorry, Becca, if you're watching. Becca Puglisi. One of these days I'll get names right. But anyway, this is going to be part of their character building series, and this one is actually we're doing two books today because they belong together, and that's going to be the positive and negative traits Thesaurus. I knew I was going to get that backwards. Positive and negative trait Thesaurus here. And these are first editions. So I don't think they're going to be updating these to second editions like they did with the Emotion Thesaurus from last week. But what these books are useful for is if you want to develop your character before you start writing and kind of figure out who your character is or what makes your character tick. The positive and negative thesaurus or trait thesauruses are good for getting to know your character before you start writing. So as usual, you're going to have at the beginning of each book, you're going to have your opening essays to help you orient yourself with what these elements are. So you have what is a positive attribute, needs and morals, influences on character strengths, building characters from the ground up, etc. And it's worth noting that positive and negative both have their own entries. So you're not going to get the same. So like in the positive trait thesaurus, you had an article that says what is a positive attribute. Hopefully you can see that in the camera. I don't know. I assume you can see it, but over here in the negative you have what is a flaw. So you have the polar opposites of both the traits. If you do open the books, you're going to get an opportunity to see the differences between the positives and negatives. So if you're struggling with identifying how to make your character strong or weak or whatever, these are books worth getting. But what's cool about this is if you have the subscription to the One Stop for Writers, which I talked about in the previous video, you're going to get all these in one place. And so what's worth noting is that you have it's a general all-purpose traits thesaurus, I believe. I don't know what they actually call it, but it's all the traits are in the same place. But what's nice about the books is you can clearly differentiate them. So if you just want to go right to the positives, you can go to the positive trait thesaurus. Or if you want to go right to the negatives, you go to the negative trait. And then each book is going to have the same basic layout. So you're going to have, for industrious, for example, is going to be our sample for today because that's what I flipped to by random. Excuse me. You have the definition like you do any other thesaurus. So in this case, it's working with devotion and determination. You have your categories, which is something that's new. And this is where you have achievement and interactive. And then you have similar attributes. So these are the ones where maybe industrious isn't exactly what you want, but you want something like it. You can look up the similar ones where you have diligent, hardworking, and tireless. And it's worth noting that this book came out before the second edition of the Emotion Thesaurus, so you don't have the indexing that the other book had. So you are going to have to search for these terms by alphabetical order rather than going right to the page. So that's the one thing where the older books like this one aren't quite as up to date as the new edition of the Emotion Thesaurus, but they still function. I mean, as long as you know how to spell, in alphabetical order, you should be able to find your way around the book pretty easily. But it has similar attributes like diligent, hardworking, tireless, and then you have possible causes. So what's cool about this is if you're trying to figure out what might make a character industrious, his possible causes would be that he has a type A personality, a desire for fulfillment or being goal-driven, having a strong passion or sense of purpose, and so on. And so these are things you can use as a baseline to determine how he got there. And then, of course, the behaviors these are the things that he might do in order to show industriousness. So they give an example of rising early and working late, being organized, punctual, and efficient, having high standards, and so on. So if your character is an industrious type, then it stands to reason that your scenes may show him doing these kinds of things. So he might, it'd be rare for him to get up late unless it's like a day that there's no work, but would he actually take a day off? Maybe, maybe not. One of the things down here is adhering to routines. Does your character have a routine? And if not, maybe he should. If your character is deemed industrious, maybe he should. And then you have associated thoughts like, if I train hard all summer, I'll be ready for the dance competition this fall. That sounds like, oh gosh, why does my brain do this to me? one of my favorite movies, and I'm forgetting the name. Oh, Silver Lining Book. Yeah, it reminds me of the movie Silver Linings Playbook. And then you have other things like by adding 5 laps to every swim lesson or session, I'll drop those extra pounds in no time. So that might be things your character would think of as an example. I mean, you're not going to use that verbatim in your book, I hope not. But you can kind of get a sense of what your reader or your character might think if he has that type of character trait. So associated emotion. So this is where you might want to go back to your emotions thesaurus, because I know by now you have one. Confidence, desire, determination, excitement, patience, overwhelming satisfaction. So if you want to show him or her in an emotional state in reference to this particular trait, those are some emotions you could use. And then, of course, if you go through the actions that the emotion thesaurus shows you, you can do that. So one thing I hope you're already seeing is that there's a connection between the different thesaurus types. So this, I don't recommend getting just one, leaving the others alone. I think you should get them all. I'll still talk about each one just so you're clear on what each one contains, so you can still ultimately make that decision. But I personally think that having all of them as a sort of composite, it is like having a puzzle where they all work together. It's so that's what I like about these particular types of thesaurus. So the fact that they're telling you which emotions and you can go look it up, I think is really beneficial. So you have, there's a section on positive aspects and negative aspects. So the positive aspects, industrious characters are dependable and hardworking, pouring all their energy into a task or goal. Job needs to be done, blah, blah, blah. It's actually a whole paragraph. I'm not going to read it. You can do that on your own. But the negative aspects, they give you, obviously, what doesn't work so well about them. So industrious characters may sometimes become so caught up in their work that it damages their health and relationships. Conflict, so you can get a conflict idea out of the negative sections if you need to. And then they what they do in this that's unique that I don't think they do in the other books is they do examples from film. So you have Rudy Rudiger, who's from the film Rudy. He's a young man who dreams of playing football at the University of Notre Dame. Although he lacks the grades, the finances, and the physique of a football player, he refuses to give up. And then it just continues to go on and explain that character in particular of what industrious looks like, or what the industrious trait looks like. And then at the end they give you a couple other examples from literature and film. They don't give you the explanation like they do for Rudy. They just tell you who the characters are and what they're from. The concept is you can go look it up on your own if you need to. But if you're familiar with those movies or those books and those characters, then you can hopefully see the traits in action. Then you have the traits and supporting characters that may cause conflict. So you have, again, like the emotions thesaurus where it shows the escalation and de-escalation. This one has a connection to other traits that you can use in the room with your character to show the conflict in play. So those who are easygoing, flaky, lazy, needy, playful, and rebellious or rowdy may challenge an industrious person. So that's a way for you to, if we go back in time a little bit to when we talked about the character archetypes and how we would set the chessboard with the different character types, this is another way of doing that, where you can instead, if you don't want to go by the archetype, you want to go by the trait instead. You can set your characters up by which traits they have, and then that's a good way to, see the sparks fly. And then you finally have a challenging scenario for the industrious character. So you have experience of family crisis that demands one's time and attention, losing one's job and with it one's sense of identity, and so on. And just like the other thesaurus, you can always go to their front contents to see, or is it? Yeah, it's the front. I didn't show this in the other video, but each of these thesaurus books has an index where you can look at the trait and see which page it corresponds with. So if you don't necessarily have to go thumbing through the book in order to figure out what you want, you can actually look for the trait first and then go to the page to see if it matches what you want. And that's positive. The negative traits does the same thing. It's just all the negative stuff. So I'll give you a quick sample of some of the differences here, just so you know what you're looking at. So for the A's in the positives, you have adaptable, adventurous, affectionate, alert, ambitious, analytical, and appreciative. And then the A's and the negative traits, you have abrasive, addictive, antisocial, apathetic. And then the differences with the positive and negative are that you still have the definition, the similar flaws. So it's, you have like the similar traits, similar flaws, possible causes like you do in the other, associated behaviors and attitudes like you do the other, thoughts, emotions, positive and negative aspects in the examples. The big difference here is in this particular book, you have a section called Overcoming This Trait as a major flaw. So the definition we're looking at for this is humorless. Okay, and again, you have just a quick overview. You have definition: having no sense of humor, similar flaws, or boring and dull. Possible causes: the belief that frivolity is wrong, snobbishness, etc. Associated behaviors and attitudes: missing the humor behind jokes, laughing only when prompted by others' laughter, etc. And I'm going to skip down to the last part here. Overcoming this trait as a major flaw. So this is the unique one to this book. One of the problems with flaws is that they tend to drive people apart, making it difficult for them to connect with others. Humorless characters may never understand the concept of humor and therefore may never be able to fully overcome this flaw. But if they focus on their positive attributes, letting them shine through, then this is what other characters will see, and their lack of humor will cease to define and limit them. So, other than that, I mean, they're very much compatible with each other, and this is why when they came out together. It's now, yes, it's two separate books, and they both cost the same. So it's like, I think, $18 per book, roughly, and that's true of all the Thesauruses. Actually, I can have a price on this because they're online only. But with this particular series of books, you will want both. Don't get just one. You'll need both because they complement each other. And then again, if you have this, you may as well get the Emotions Thesaurus, because that's also going to complement these by allowing you to further show your character in action by how they portray themselves on screen. So again, this is the positive traits Thesaurus and the negative traits Thesaurus. I do think they're both very useful to have, just like the other ones. And if you want to do the subscription to One Stop for Writers, then you won't actually need these books because all the definitions will be on there. And again, online, they're going to keep them up to date. And every so often, they'll even add to the Thesaurus, although that's rare. If you're going to buy it just for the possible editions, I wouldn't do that. But if you want to save the long-term money, get the paperbacks. They're really worth having. Or if you want the ebook, I like the paperbacks personally. I just like having it in my hand and being able to flip to a page and reading about it. Or if I want to go lay down and read about what my character needs to do in order to do whatever, just having that ability to sit down in a chair, with a nice piece of paper instead of the bright screen. I personally prefer that, but you do what you want to do. But I think they're worth having. So ultimately, you should look into them. Even if you don't buy them, at least look into what they offer so you can make a sound decision. So, but anyway, that's the traits Thesauruses. Next week we're gonna do there's gonna be another specific one for character development in the emotions category. We'll do that next week, and then the following week we're gonna do one more character building, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about what you don't have available on paperback at the end of that video. And then from there on, we're going to be officially done with the characters of this season. So stay tuned. But hope you got all you needed out of this. So don't forget to like and subscribe, do all the things that YouTubers tell you to do, and do come back next week for more. And then don't forget, if you want to support this channel, you can do so by buying my books. Hopefully, I have something you want to read. You can look my name up, Jeremy Bursey, on Amazon, or hopefully my website will be open by now. But even if it's not, I'm easy to find. Just you can put my name in Google, and I'm sure you'll find something that I wrote somewhere. But that's a good way to support me because I don't have Patreon or anything like that, and my subscriber count's a little on the low end for advertising. So if you like thrillers, if you like coming of age stories, if you like adventures, check me out. I recommend The Computer Nerd because that's the one that I'm for at least for a while. I'm done revising. At some point I'll do a series on it. I don't know when that's going to happen. So the standalone book, it's been fully revised. I just put a paperback out, which I'll talk more about that in a few weeks. That's updated. So everything's updated. So it's a good time to check it out if you're interested. So just let me know. Little plug to help me out, to keep me going. So anyhow, that's all for today. Come back next week. We'll do the next Thesaurus on their list that you should have. It won't be in order of release, but it will be in order of just staying on theme. So, all All right, that's all. Talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.